Well, hello. So today I'm going to make a bag in my ingot stitch. And the yarn I'm using is this Noro yarn. It's a bulky. And it's Nora Bachi yarn, B-A-C-H-I. And the color is 15. And this is it. It's a nice big bulky. It's 100% wool. Now you don't have to use wool to make this bag. You can use acrylic, cotton, for, what is really good for a summer bag, or a cotton silk blend, or whatever you like. Even hemp will work. So you can use any yarn you want with the right size loom. And my yarn's all kind of twisted up here. There we go. So I got some. So the loom I'm using is a Cindywood loom, 34 pegs, 3/4 inch. And I'm using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I'm using 15 pegs. Count them again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 pegs. And I'm just making a small bag. You can make it smaller or larger. Well, it'll be more like a medium bag. Okay, now the style I'm going to do is a really old style. I've sewed it before. It was a sewing pattern, I think by Simplicity. I can't remember the name, but I think it was Simplicity. And a lot of crochet bags in this style. And they call it a tri-fold. They call it a tri bag. They call it a multi-fold. It's called a folded style. It's got a whole lot of names, and even called origami. And Lumahat does have one of this type of pattern out there. She calls an origami. It's a larger market bag style with a mesh kind of knit, big for going to the market. So if you wanted to have a market bag, she already has a video out there of this style. If you want a smaller bag that's thicker, more a purse style or a bag for carrying things that you don't want a meshy thing, then this is a better style. But it's a very easy bag, and I'll be showing you this stitch. It's a much tighter weave stitch than a lot. So okay, let's get started. The loom hook I'm using is just a loom hook that I got from We Have a Handle on This. They're not making them at the moment, but they're very similar ones on Etsy from our Artisanal Turnings. Okay, now I marked the loom with 2 stitch markers on the last 2 pegs and 2 stitch markers on the first 2 pegs. And how you want to do this bag is you need it to be 3 times the width. So I measured the width. I did a swatch. I did about 10 stitches, took it off, measured it to see how wide this would be with this amount of pegs, and I've got 8 inches. So that's a nice number, easy to multiply it 3 times. So we're going to have 24 inches at this being 8 inches across. And it's a 3/4 inch loom. So if you're using a smaller loom, you'll need to do more pegs. But you'll see my size, and then you can decide how you want to adjust it. But you're always going to do 3 times longer than your width. Okay? So I'm going to go on with a simple slip knot. And I do my, well, if I could talk, I do my slip knots really easy. I just go like this, turn it like this, and then slip the working yarn through here and pull. So that's kind of slip knot I do. The simplest one I've seen. That's how I learned it when I was a kid, so that's the way I do it. Okay, so now that I have it on the loom, I'm going to put my hook in there. I'm going to come over, and I'm just going to scoop it up. Okay, now you can do any style of cast on and cast off. It's going to be folded up anyway there. And so you're not really going to see those 2 ends. So I'm going to do another cast off that I do that just tends to be a little bit tighter, especially when I'm going to be folding it. So Now that I've got my loop here, I'm just going to put the loop on the peg, but you can do any cast on you want. So I put it on and I tighten it, and then I come over and I'm just going to scoop it up again, and then I'm going to flip it. So you have it this way. I'm just going to flip it once, put it on the next peg, tighten, come over, pick it up like this, and then you've got it facing you like this. You're just going to flip it, always flip it the same way, tighten it, come over, knit it off. And this is one of these cast-ons that you can do that you don't have to tighten the stitches after. I do have it on my channel. Okay, so go in, scoop it up, then you're just going to flip it, tighten, come over, scoop up the next one, flip it, tighten, scoop it, scoop it, flip it up, turn it, that, and tighten, scoop, and turn, and scoop it, and turn it. Now, what I like about this cast on here is it is the one that matches my owl eye bind off the best. Okay, so flip it, and I'm going to do it in a way that does resemble the owl eye cast off in case you were looking for one. Scoop and turn, and scoop and turn, and then we're almost at the end, and scoop and turn, and scoop and turn. You put the last one on the peg, tighten, and then all you have to do is knit it over. Okay, now if you wanted it to lay flat, what you do is do a row of U-wrap and then a row of purl, and then just go into any stitch you were going to do. But we don't have to do that on this project, so we're going to go straight into doing owl eye. And I'm going to actually start skipping the last stitch on both sides, just because some of the sides will end up being the top of the bag, and I want everything to look the same and have a nice look to it for the top of a bag. Okay, so I'm just going to skip that last stitch, and I'm going to go right into doing owl eye. So I'm going to put this over, I'm going to knit this off. Whatever peg we're on is peg 1. I'm going to go over peg 1 and 2 and knit them both off. Okay, I'm on peg 1. I go over 1 and 2, knit them both off. On peg 1, over 1 and 2, knit them both off. On peg 1, go over 1 and 2, knit them both off. Peg 1, go over 1 and 2, knit them both off. Peg 1, go over 1 and 2, knit them both off. On peg 1, knit them both off. And that's all there is to doing owl eye. So we're going to do 2 rows of owl eye stitch. Okay, so I'll take you to the end and start back on the other row. We come down to the last stitch, and that's going to be we're just going to skip it like this. So we're going to go over this peg. This peg's always going to be an owl eye peg, then come back and go over it again, and then come behind this peg like this and knit it over. And the other way to see it is just to put the other stitch on here and then come around in an E-wrap. And we're just going to knit this off, and then we're going to skip that stitch. Coming back, we're just doing that 1 stitch on it. We're coming back and we do the 2nd row of owl eye. So we go on peg 1, knit it off. That's the 1st stitch. Then we come behind it, go over peg 1 and 2 and knit them off. Okay, and there's our 2nd row of owl eye. Okay, we come down to the end, go over it once, come over it twice, and then we're going to U-wrap this last peg. There. Now we're coming back into row 3, and row 3 is a different stitch. So what you're going to do for row 3 is we're always going to do this peg and owl eye. So we're going to come over it, come back over it again, and I'm just going to hold it there, knit it off. Now the stitch we're going to do is purl over, which is not like a purl. It's like you've got it in the formation of a knit. You're going to take it from the bottom, scoop it up, and just flip it over and then tighten it. And you're going to see these 2 bars like this. Okay, go to the next one. And you don't want to be so tight it's going to be hard to knit over. Make sure that when you put your loom hook in here you have some give. So come under, scoop up the working yarn, put it on the peg, and tighten it. Now depending on your yarn, you may be able to just come up, scoop it up, and just flip it over. I don't want to do that with this yarn because it's very bulky and it's hard to just do that, so I'm just doing it this way. We'll come under, scoop it up, and put it on and tighten. So it's like a knit, but you, instead of replacing it like a knit, you flip it over. But it's called a purl over. Teresa Higby named it, okay? That's the name of it. So but that's how you do it. And pull. Go from the bottom and tighten. Scoop it up and tighten. And what this stitch will do is keep your work in a really nice stitch pattern, but it also tightens it up into a tighter stitch. And that was thinner there, so it was easy to flip it over like that. The yarn goes thicker and thinner. Right now it's thinner. It's starting to get a bit thicker though. Okay, then when we get down to these last 2 pegs, this one's always owl eye. And we come back around and do the E-wrap. And we're going to skip this stitch. And now we're back on row 1. So we do 2 more rows of owl eye and then another row of the purl over. Okay, so that's it. And I showed you how to do it now, and they're just going to keep doing it. And as you see, I'm getting it over pretty easy, so that means these weren't too tight. If you find that this is too tight, then all you need to do is loosen up as you go, and it will get better. So we'll just keep going. I've done a few more sets, and so here's how it's looking. It's a really beautiful stitch. Look at how the detail and the texture, and this yarn really is showing the detail of it really nicely. And the other side is looking like this. It's just nice, and it's a nice inside of a bag because it's nice and smooth. And you've got all your texture here on the outside, and it's very tight stitch, so things won't be falling out of it even if you decide never to put lining in it, and I'm certainly not going to. It's tight enough, you don't need any lining unless you want. If I ever have anything I'm worried because it has small bits or whatever, I just throw it inside a bag inside my bag. And so I don't have to worry about lining it at all. All depends what your bag is for. So there's how it looks. You just keep going those sets of 3. That's ingot stitch. And I'm going to go to my 24 inches because I'm 8 inches across. But when you get about this long, you can measure it, or longer. You just measure how long you are here, and then whatever you are, times that by 3, and that's how long you're going to go. So you don't need to know how many stitches, you just need to know your measurements, and your measurements will give you the greatest accuracy. So we'll see you when you get to the length that you want to go, and I'll show you the next steps. Okay, see you in a bit. Okay, so now we've got as long as we wanted to go, and we'll just take a look at it. And it's a very pretty stitch. Okay, so then what we're going to do, and you're going to make sure that your yarn is long enough, going at least 2.5 times around the stitches that you have and putting a needle on it. Okay, and then this is where we slip the stitch right here. So we're always going to go down the new stitch. So that'll be the second stitch here. And we're very carefully going to take it under this yarn here. And then we're going to go up the number 1 stitch. And go back around the number 2 stitch. Then we have a new stitch here, so we always go down the new stitch, up the old stitch, and then around from the back, and then down the new stitch, up the old stitch, behind, keeping it snug, down the new stitch, up the old stitch, keeping it snug, going behind, down the new stitch, up the old stitch, going behind, keeping it snug, down the new stitch, up the old stitch, going behind, keeping it snug. And we're going to do that all the way down, so we'll catch up at the end of the row. Okay, so I just went up the old one, so now behind, and now we're almost at the end, and I have just enough yarn, especially if I leave it on the needle and don't drop it. We go down and then up the old one, and then we're done. So we went down, so I'm going to go up this time and keep the yarn in here, and I'm just going to take it off the loom, and I'll just pop it off with my loom hook very carefully. I'm leaving the needle in because that way I'll be more sure to not lose that piece of yarn. Okay, so now we have this loop here, and I'm just going to take this and go through it and pull it snug there at the end. And there we go, it's off the loom. And then you just need to pull it a little bit. There we go. And there we are. We are bound off. Okay, so now I'm just going to get ready to do the next step, so we'll see you in a few. Okay, so now I just fold this down to meet this side here, and then I'm going to fold this one up. Okay, so take it and you fold one down and one up, and I'm just going to put in, make sure that these sides are completely folded here, and I'm just going to put in a stitch marker to hold it in place, and I'll get another one, and I'll just put a stitch marker in here just to hold it in place for me. And then we're going to fold it up like this, so we get this shape. Now if you folded it the other way, you would not get the shape, so that lets you know you're folding it the wrong way. We're going to fold it up, and then this is the shape of the little bag that I'm making. Okay, it'll be a nice tight little purse just to carry what I need. And then we'll be sewing this seam together, and we'll be sewing this seam together. So I'm just going to carefully pin together just to hold it in place what we're going to be sewing together. So I don't lose it, and it'll be on both sides. Okay, so I'm going to get ready to do that, so I will see you in a couple minutes. Okay, so I've just put in a few pegs to hold it in place, a few pins on each side to hold it in place. And then I'm just going to turn it inside out and decide how I'm going to attach it. So I have the two here, so I'm just going to show you how to do that. Okay, so I'm ready to sew. So all I'm going to do is look for the two loops. So if you look at this, you'll see that you have a hole here and two loops, a hole here and two loops, a hole here and two loops, and on the other side, easier to see here I think, two loops. So there's a hole in the yarn, and above that two loops. So what we're going to do is go down through the two loops on each side like that. I'm going to pick up those two loops with my yarn. Okay, and then I'm going to go through it again. Okay, I'm going to go to the next two loops, pick them up, and the next two loops on the other side, and pick them up and go through, and then I'm going to come through it again, exactly the same spot. And I'm on the wrong side of the fabric. And then we're going to look for the next two loops, and I'm going to have to take this off of here. You can sew this together any way you like. This is just the way I decided to sew it, and there's a number of different methods. Okay, so I'm going to go into the next 2 loops. Here they are. I'm going to tighten that. And then I'm going to come back and go through them again. And keep it nice and tight. And I'm looking for the next 2 loops, and I'm going to go through both of them on both sides. You keep getting this piece of yarn mixed in with it there. And then come back and do it again. And then go to the next 2. And then come back and do it again. I might be able to shorten my yarn too. Let's see how far I've got. Yep, I think I can shorten it. So I'm just going to shorten it so it makes it a little easier for me to sew. Take my scissor, shorten the yarn a bit, make it easier to pull it through. Still pretty long, but I want to make sure I have enough. And then we look for the next 2. It's 2 here, 2 loops here. And then I go back through those. Okay, so it's pretty easy, and you just keep going along doing that. So when we go to the 2 new ones, it pulls the yarn across this way. And then it just goes straight across and does another sew. And then when I go to the next 2, it pulls the yarn across again to make it nice and secure. Come back again. Okay, so I'm just going to go all the way to the end, and I will see you at the end. Okay, so I'm at the end, so now I'm just going to weave in all my ends, and once they're all woven in, we'll catch up, and although do the other side. We'll do the other side exactly the same, and then we'll just catch up after we've woven in the ends. So I'll see you then. So okay, here we are, and it's sewed on both sides. Okay, and so what I'm going to do now, it looks really cute here, and I put just 2 little slip rings that I got, and then I clipped it on to just a little handle, so it's already a little purse, but I also have longer handles if I want it to be a crossbody bag. It's going to be a perfect size for what I wanted. My cell phone will fit in it easy, and it's still got room for my keys and whatever else I want to put in there. And so that's what I wanted it for. So you can make one, of course, bigger if you want. And I've sewed a little button on it, a mother of pearl button. And then I'm going to make a little loop so that I can close it. So I've got the loom here. I'm just going to make a little loop. So to make the little loop, I'm just going to do a slip knot here. And put it on the peg that I'm going to do it on. And get my loom hook. And I'm just going to make a small one. And so I'm just going to go around in an U-wrap and knit it off, snug it up, round in a U-wrap, knit it and snug it up, and then I can just keep going around in the U-wrap, keeping it nice and tight, and just do it the length that I want. I don't want it too long, I just want it to go around the button. So I just keep doing that. Some more yarn here. It's a very easy one. And as you see, I'm getting this. And then I look and see how long it is, and I want it to be a little bit longer. Let me look at it to see how long it is. And that should come over the button almost, just a little bit more. So I just do another 2. Okay, now what I'm going to do is take it off. Keep the loop big so that I can put the working yarn through. So I just need to find my scissors, so I'll just look for okay, found them and snipped it off, and I'm going to put the yarn through the loop and tighten it, and there we go. There's my loop. And I'm going to take this and put the loop around my button. And I have to be able to get around the button, so that's going to be perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go now and go to the other side of the purse and attach the loop. So I'm just going to take the loop, sew it in on the 2 sides with a yarn needle until I get a perfect little loop. That will just come off the button and come back and go on the button to hold it down. So I'm just going to sew it in here on the other side. So when I'm done, we'll take a look at it. Okay, so here I am. I've got the loop sewn in here, so I just take it, put it over here, and there we go. That closes up the bag. And I'm happy with it. You can take a look at it, see how pretty the stitching is. And what a cute little bag it will be. And I hope you enjoyed the video. And until next time, bye.